I know that for most of us, like creating systems and processes feels like a root canal, like it's not fun. Um, right?
Sure,
But
sure.
to use a dental analogy, like if you go in and you get your checkups, every 6 months and you look at your operations every 6 months, it won't lead to that.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasseman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. She's the founder at Scale Time. She served over 300 digital agencies and has been featured in Forbes and Entrepreneur. Juliana Marulanda, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Cool, cool. So I'm excited because you have helped people scale. So I want to talk a little bit about growing. Businesses, I think sometimes they will grow to a certain point, but like there seems to be business plateaus, like the 1 million, the 1.3 million, and $7 million mark. Why are there business plateaus at those marks, do you think?
So I often laugh, right? Because I'll point out to the 1.3 and people are
Mhm.
like 1.3 sounds really weird.
Yeah.
And every single time I get on a sales call, people have been like, yeah, I've been at this 1.25, 1.2 for the last, 2, 5, 6,
Wow.
20 years. And there's a mad dash to a million, I think, as
Yeah.
owners, right? Both from, a revenue, a vanity, a pride,
Yeah.
also just can I make it, right? Like there's this,
Yeah.
badge, slash milestone of honor to get to that million.
Yeah.
And the systems, the processes, the mindset, and the team that got you to a million will not get you to three or five.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like and I've seen great visionaries with amazing, skills, a good network, and great referrals get to a million very quickly,
Yeah.
right? And usually at that point, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about the operations of things, not so much like the sales or the
Mhm.
mindset, which are other components, is like the systems that you build for $1 million business are usually around execution, right? Can
Yeah.
we can we produce, can we deliver good results, can we make clients happy, can they stay happy,
Yeah.
right? And really kind of thinking through that initial sprout and sprint, if it were.
Yeah.
But now once you start wanting to break into like the 3 and 7, now we're starting to think of like, oh crap, I need someone to manage these people.
Yeah.
I need someone to manage results. So we start to think about, what does the organization look like? What kind of structure do we really want for the organization, right? Is it like
Yeah.
hierarchical? Is it a pod? Are we doing something where we have a leadership team, quote unquote, in house, and
Mhm.
then maybe some of our execution is outsourced or white labeled or whatnot, right?
Mhm.
And how do we get leaner, right? Like you start making more strategic decisions,
Yeah.
and with those strategic decisions, it's like who's going to manage these people,
Mhm.
who's managing the results, right? And how is
Yeah.
the owner, if you really want to get to that next level, are you kind of ending this I'm the single point of failure type of
Yeah.
mantra
Yeah.
that you're stuck, like you got your hands in all the cookie jars because you still know how to do everything.
Yeah.
And how do we get others to manage, right? And so with that comes systems for communication, systems for project management, systems and operations for management. And then once you start to want to break out of that sort of $7 million plateau and you're like, oh, I'm ready to hit 8 figures,
Mhm.
um now we're really starting to talk about standardization of performance,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So like no longer can we just get the thing through the door without, and just like cross our fingers and hope it's good, right? But
Yeah.
how do we start putting in performance metrics for your accounts team, for
Right.
your production team, for your sales team, right? Like
Yeah.
now we're really starting to take a look at, these teams, which hopefully have like leads, right? Whatever those
Yeah.
leads look like, right? Leads can
Right.
look like managers, directors, right? You know, up
Hmm.
the chain, if it were, of seniority.
Hmm.
And then how do we, you know, how are they starting to manage those teams, those budgets,
Hmm.
um, you know, and results, so
Yeah.
that as an owner, you really are staying in the strategic and visionary standpoint.
Yeah.
And that's what I've seen. It's sort of this um same resources just aren't going to get you to that next level. You have to kind of up the ante when it comes to your operations.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And you referenced it about the idea of, you're going to need more people potentially. So that means you got to manage them. And you reference the challenges. Why do people struggle with that? Why do people hate to manage other people?
Because most of us didn't get into business to become HR, right? Like,
Mm.
like that wasn't like the
Yeah,
dream, right? Like,
yeah.
you know, most of us came, you know, we went into business because either like, you know, we thought we could do it better,
Hmm.
faster, um, you know, and more like creative, right? Like
Yeah,
there was a stamp into the world that we wanted to make, right?
right,
And usually that stamp was not like, let me really manage and harness like the most empowered team ever.
right,
Right?
right.
Like,
Yeah,
you know, for most owners, right? Like the camps are usually you're either really into innovation, right?
mm,
So you're really into making like a really fantastic product,
mm,
right? Like you know, and for marketers, it's like, you're studying the algorithms, you know what they're thinking, right?
yeah,
Like you,
yeah,
like you're like you love the results of things, right?
yeah,
You know, for the other camp of owners, it's you love the chase of the sale.
right.
Like, you know, it's really like, you know, you walk into the room, you're the smartest person, you can schmooze, you can sell, you know, and you're wanting to grow that empire, right? And so
Mm,
like neither of these camps really are, you know, managers, right? Like they're
right.
not really people in terms of a team oriented.
Yeah.
Um and so, you know, and I know it's like it's cheeky to be like everyone hates management, but it's like not the favorite thing, right? Like,
Right.
and you know, being able to have those difficult conversations, um being able to make sure like know who's performing and who's not, and
Mm,
you're in it with your people, which is great, but usually the management detracts you from the stuff that you actually want to do, which
right.
is to, you know, grow the business,
Mhm.
increase the book of business, increase the portfolio, whether that's like getting the sexier new projects or, you know, better clients, you know, more strategic partnerships, right? Like out in the world, instead of asking, you know, why, you're answering the same question 100 times, and why no
Right.
one has common sense, right? So
Right.
it's kind
Yeah.
of I think it comes down to aptitude, capability, personality.
Yeah.
Most owners, unless you're like this amazing person who is like a manager who actually enjoys manager, you've been in corporate, or you've had some sort of HR and then you went off and actually have developed that as a business.
Right.
Most of us just like not exactly our cup of tea.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And I think, I think there are some people who are really empathetic by nature, but I think, the people who start these companies often are hard chargers. I think that your point's super well taken. So,
Yeah.
being able to manage people, I can speak to it. I've been blessed with some good people,
Mhm.
but man, when it goes sideways, it's really hard. Those hard conversations can really detract from everything else sometimes.
Absolutely, right? And like, and if you think about as you're expanding the business, right? Like, beyond like the 7 into the 8 figure, right? Like you're talking about the entire talent life cycle. It's like, you're hiring, right? Are you doing active recruiting, passive recruiting? Who has time for that? Like, right? Then it's like you're onboarding, right?
Yep.
And you're hoping that like you're not, training someone via like osmosis.
Right.
You're then managing their performance, and KPIs is a whole thing of like how do you grab, track, review, performance. Then again, like you have to put someone on a PIP, on a performance improvement plan. Like, do you have the documentation for that? Like,
Right.
are you offboarding? Right? Like, there's just so much, and I'm not even talking about like
It
the
just makes me
admin
tired.
of HR. Exactly. It's like most owners, it's almost like bookkeeping. Like, who wants to sit there and reconcile their books every month?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Not me. I totally get it. Totally get it. Well, I think that, that speaks to the idea that, to grow to those next levels, processes are super important. And people talk about processes for growing your business so that you can duplicate yourself. But how do processes help you create a better client experience?
So, I think that there's a lot to be borrowed from like user experience, right? From UX,
Mm,
and how people build, like products,
mhm.
right? And I often say that for B2B services, right, in which marketers land, for the most part, your process is your product,
Mm,
right? If you can think about it
yeah.
that way,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when your internal processes are messed up, clients know it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they really do, right? They're like, so oftentimes there'll be things like, clients will come to us and they're like, damn it, our client keeps asking us for more work. And we've seen this, a client has gone from, doing a 10K retainer, and then all of a sudden they've grown, and then they're asking the marketing agency, like, can we triple that? And
Mhm.
all of a sudden the agency's like, oh crap, right?
Yeah.
Can we 5x that? And
Yeah.
and we've seen that. Like we've seen clients grow because their retainers, have gone, and made them $1 million businesses off of like a couple of retainers. And that goes into a whole other slew of issues too, right?
Right. Yeah.
But if you're thinking about it, like, how is it that like your internal processes are being reflected, right?
Mhm.
When you onboard a client, right, like, do they know what the next steps are? Do they know
Mhm.
what is happening? When we're managing accounts, do they understand the review process?
Mhm.
If not, oftentimes they're kind of like dragging it, or
Right.
or you're like, oh my god, I feel like I'm being exploited, but like there's no expectations that were set.
Yeah.
And so like what the client feels and does is an outcome of your internal processes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a ton of sense. Okay, that's good stuff. You've got my wheels turning for sure. So, final question for you: what are sort of and I'd say three most, but what are the most important pieces of advice you have for people who want to scale their business?
Um, well, one, I think I already said, treat your process like it were a product. I think
Yeah, I
that's
love that.
really important. Because if you think about it that way, and you're getting feedback from both your clients and your team, you're able to improve it.
Yeah.
As a subcategory of that is progress over perfection.
Okay.
um and I am going to call out the branding agencies.
Yeah.
Branding and communication agencies specifically. I'm like, you want to do function over, it being like the most visual thing ever.
Right. Totally
Like
agree.
dirty drafts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm often like, dirty drafts. Like, you'll have something that you didn't have before. It'll be awesome.
Yeah.
So I think progress over perfection is a huge one. And then the third thing I will say is, like, don't throw people at a process problem.
Mm,
Um,
that's good.
because that gets so expensive so quickly,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I know that for most of us, like, creating systems and processes feels like a root canal. Like, it's not fun. Um, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
to use a dental analogy, like, if you go in and you get your checkups, every 6 months, and you look at your operations every 6 months, it won't lead to that.
Right.
And especially, with macroeconomics happening and, whether it's an up market or a down market, like to be able to stay lean makes you competitive. It
Yeah.
gives you profitability and that gives you money to invest,
Mm,
right? In
yeah.
other things, not just people. So taking some time, it kind of takes time to create capacity. If you create that capacity and you create that, um, productivity, it will lead to more profitability. So it's definitely, kind of a call to process, if it were.
Yeah, man, that's great stuff. Juliana, thank you so much for taking the time today. Where can folks find out more about Scale Time?
Yes. So, like, I know that as agency owners and marketers, it's really grueling to scale,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to be. So we have tons of resources. One of the easiest things is like joining our newsletter.
Mhm.
We have like 6 months worth of just value to to share in terms of like little micro steps that you can
Mhm.
do to implement in your business. You can check that out at scaletime.co/podcast /marketing joy.
Got
That'll
it.
be there. We also have a 5-minute diagnostic. It basically uncovers like 50 operational gaps.
Hmm.
In 5 minutes, it sort of replaces us hanging out with you for 2 weeks and interviewing your entire team.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
that's a huge thing that we've developed over the years. We send you fancy results, so take advantage of that. And if you're at that place where you're like, ooh, maybe I've hit that plateau or we're a little stuck and you wanna, chat and have a strategy call, I am totally down for doing that. And that's at scaletime.co/podcast/marketing joy.
It's awesome. Juliana, this was really fun. We'll have to do it again sometime, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time. Marketing Joy.